Developer, and my responsibilities are to understand the assigned functionality and UML diagrams and developing code for the given application. And basically, I have expertise in Java, JSP, Servlet, Spring Boot, Angular, and Hibernate. And I also have a good understanding of UML diagrams, and I have worked on the design patterns and talking about the architecture. So I also have a good understanding of architecture. Okay, so and I also have used design patterns in my application. So now the next question is, what design pattern have you used in your application? So basically we have used the front control design pattern, session facade design pattern, command design pattern, and bridge design pattern, builder design pattern, data access, basically DAO design pattern. Okay, so talking about what is the front control design pattern, it prevents any user to access the application without login. If user wants to access the application, if a user wants to access the application, so first of all it will have to do login. Then talking about what the next design pattern is session facade design pattern. It is a single entry point to the database for entire application. If it means basically as I have told you that we are using the architecture that is layered architecture. So we have basically multiple layers like presentation layer, the business layer, data access layer. Okay, so if means presentation layer, that is controller, if need any data, so that we know that there is a layer that is DAO layer, data access layer, and this layer communicating with the database. Okay, so when controller needs any data, controller will not directly communicate with the data access layer. It will always go through the service, that is business layer. Okay, so basically we are using session design pattern in business layer using the address service annotations. Okay, and we have auto wired the DAO layer in the service layer using the address auto wired annotation. And talking about data access layer, so basically we are using Java Persistence API. Okay, we are using JPA, Java Persistence API. So JPA, the DCP, I'm going to tell you what is the DCP of JPA. So data connection pool of the JPA is what? Entity manager. From where entity manager comes? Entity manager comes from the added persistence context annotation. Okay, basically this annotation of this is the annotation of JPA, and this annotation loads the interfaces of JPA. So entity manager is one of them, which is used to perform the CRUD operations. Okay, so we are performing all CRUD operations with the help of entity manager, such as if you have to add the user, then we have a save method of the entity manager. If you have to update the user, then we have a update or merge, find. We have lots of methods over here. Now talking about controller. So basically we in the in the Spring Boot, as I have told you that we are using Spring Boot. So Spring Boot provides address rest controller annotation. Spring Boot provides address rest controller annotation, which is a combination of two annotations, that is address controller and address what response body. Got it? So uh, in Spring framework we were using what address controller annotation to communicate to create the controller. Basically controller has ability to send or receive the JSON data. JSON stands for JavaScript object notation. Okay, and when it returns the data, so we have to use address response body annotations. Okay, but in case of Spring Boot, we are not using explicitly address response body annotation. We use only Spring Boot provides the address rest controller annotation, which is a combination of two annotations, address controller and address response body. Basically Spring Boot reduce the boilerplate in the sense ki in the sense means when we write code lots of when we write lots of code to perform minimal task. Okay, so basically Spring Boot reduces that one. Okay, and there is one more example I have, like we are Spring Boot provides the address Spring Boot application notation, which is a combination of three notations: Again it is reducing three annotation at rate enable auto configuration, at rate configuration, at rate component scan. But in case of Spring we are using three separate annotations. Okay, but in Spring Boot these all three annotations has been converted into only one annotation. Okay, one annotation, that is Spring Boot application. Now, okay, so this is all about the, and there is one more design pattern, that is command design pattern. It means command design pattern is what? Navigating by URL to call a specific controller. For that we are using address response request mapping annotation. Request mapping annotation, with the help of request mapping annotation we are mapping the URL. Okay, we are mapping the URL. Okay, and we pass the value as a parameter, and then okay, so these are all about the layers. Done.